Day 509 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take that simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a quick look at the stats, as Russia is currently sitting on more than 238,000 military personnel losses, which includes an additional 620 losses in the past day. And as for hardware losses, 8 tanks, 8 APVs, 23 artillery, and 3 air defense systems. And now we'll move over to the map because certainly a big news story has come out today as the Crimean Bridge, which connects Russia to the Russian-occupied Crimean Peninsula, was reportedly hit by 2 strikes at 3:20 a.m. local time this morning. And the lack of anti-aircraft fire suggests that it would have likely been as a result of a naval USV attack, which different sources are suggesting. In fact, a source close to the Ukrainian army said that, quote, the bridge was attacked with the help of surface drones. It was difficult to reach the bridge, but in the end, it was possible to do it. And as for the actual damage, it appears that one span of the car bridge has collapsed. As a result, there was the temporarily halted movement of cars and trains over the bridge, and as per Google Maps, traffic jams could also be seen. Now, the implications for this type of event is always pretty significant, as the Crimean Bridge, aka the Kerch Stray Bridge, is a logistically significant object that is one of only 2 ways that the Russian military can support various fronts, including Kherson, Crimea, and Zaporizhia. Now, Ukraine has taken out plenty of logistical routes in Russian-occupied Ukraine, including railway lines, roads, and small bridges, but many of these hits have usually been fairly quickly fixed or replaced by the Russian army, be it through steelworks for railways or pontoon setups for lost river bridges. But this is where things are different for the Crimean Bridge. For example, last time it was hit back in October 8th, of last year, it took about 8 months for Russia to repair the bridge to its former glory. And do note, at the time it had both road collapse damage and railway damage, causing Russia to stop or limit usage of the bridge for significant portions of time, having them opt for these slow and ineffective ferry routes adjacent to the bridge instead, which, as you might guess, is not good for Russian business. That is to say, the Russian war machine. And problematically for Russia now, the Ukrainian offensive combat capabilities are only becoming more and more advanced, likely turning situations like these into the new normal for Russia. There's really no 2 ways about it. Oh, and also, you can't make this stuff up. A truck with bio toilets burned down in the traffic jam in front of the Crimean Bridge. And just so you know, bio toilets don't require any indoor plumbing, which is quite fitting for the 30% of Russians which don't have that civil luxury. But really now, as a result of this larger event, all the old memes from last October are coming out again, it seems. Also, Ukrainian officials haven't seemed to officially state their involvement in the incident as yet, but they did say, quote, "We do not comment." One can only quote the words of the head of the Defense Intelligence, Bordanov, that the Crimean Bridge is an unnecessary construction. Which is actually very much something that the straight-faced Bordanov would actually say. Then also, former Russian Donbass commander Igor Girkin gave his 2 cents on the topic as well, saying that Ukraine will hit more and do it further and harder, but also that the, quote, idiots in the Kremlin need to realize Ukraine won't be making any territorial concessions and are in it to win it. And I've got to say, the timing is impeccable for me, as it was just yesterday that I briefly mentioned about the development of the Toloka long-range naval kamikaze drones, saying that they will be used sooner or later, and definitely that they would be used this year. So it looks like at least an initial production run was complete. What a time to be alive. Then we'll move around on the map today, see what else is going on. So, assaults on Russian positions supported by Ukrainian armored vehicles near Klishchivka are occurring. So, pull that one up on the map there. And the AFU now control the commanding heights over the settlement and have it under fire control. Klishchivka itself is now said to be in the grey zone, which is a step up from Russian-controlled red, which we can currently see here on the updated map, unupdated map that is. Then, somewhere in the east, another Russian tank that drove over their own landmine. Again, so an AT mine perhaps, anti-tank mine. And the crew managed to bail out. And in this war, more and more, we see the need for the key technical capability of effective mine clearing operations, which each side needs to effectively possess this capability for. As success will certainly favour the side that most successfully implements mine clearing actions to allow for their offensive operations. And mine clearing equipment comes in all shapes and sizes these days, and I'll show you some of the new types shortly in this video. Then we'll head down to the southern front as Ukrainian forces have reportedly advanced over a kilometer in the Berdyansk direction. But I want to give a bit of a summary for Zaporizhia right now, as in this region, the Russian narrative likes to put a negative spin on the AFU counteroffensive operations, but it should also be noted that Russians today repeat word for word what they said before the offensive that liberated Izium, Lerman, and Kherson, and all the rest, as they previously proclaimed. So the Russian side previously proclaimed that these offensives or counteroffensives were all destined to fail as well. They're running out of new propaganda, so they're recycling it instead. Recycling. It's good for the environment. Then, moving along to the Kherson left bank axis, so no specific changes here, but it's pretty clear that Russians are ousted from the bridgehead area all the way up to Aleshki, over the Konka River, and today we saw footage of Russian troops retreating over the Konka River Bridge. Then we'll head across to some news for today, and we'll start out with some hardware and or training news updates. So due to Ukraine now becoming one of the most contaminated or mine-contaminated countries in the world, I should say, the Ukrainian forces are now training to remove said landmines. In this instance, with drone-dropped munitions as seen here at a training range. And Ukrainian quadcopters appear to be getting effective at both discovery and clearing of locally obvious landmines, which, as mentioned earlier, will become a key component in modern warfare in order to help tip the balance of power in the favor of those that wield these types of mine clearing skill sets. Then as for another hardware news update, so the USA is set to acquire 23 Hawk air defense systems from Taiwan for Ukraine to defend against Russia. The Hawk air defense systems could be used to bolster Ukraine's counteroffensives and existing air defenses. Also note, these systems can be placed 15 to 30 kilometers or 10 to 20 miles from the front line, with a max missile range of about up to 40 kilometers or about 25 miles. Then in some other news, prices at Russian gas stations have increased for the consumer more in the past 6 months than they have for the previous 5 years. Now, Russia is a net exporter of oil and are one of the largest petroleum producers in the world. But it seems this war is starting to take its toll on the average Russian citizen in ways not seen until now. Take, for example, Russians currently pay about 52 rubles per litre at the gas pump, whereas in just January of this year, January 2023, Russians paid roughly 44 rubles per litre of fuel to fill up their cars. And that 44 rubles from the beginning of this year is approximately the same as the average fuel price from July of 2018, which was actually 42 rubles. So not far off. And that was a full 5 years ago. And this inevitably causes regular Russians to feel the pinch more and more, just like everybody else, I might add. And if these prices increase and continue to expand in this way, or at this rate for Russian civilians, this will inevitably lead to a lot of discontentment for Russians looking to blame their politicians. Fingers crossed, right? Then in some other big news, the US has officially approved European training of Ukrainian pilots for the F-16 fighter jet platform. So the green light has now been given, which will permit, support, facilitate, and provide the necessary tools for Ukrainians to begin training on the F-16 jets as soon as their European partner nations are prepared. So that's amazing news. We knew it would happen, just more of an officialism of sorts for this one. Then in some other news, so recently Putin was supposedly responding to an impromptu elevator or hallway interview about the Ukrainian use of cluster munitions, where he stated that Russia has not yet used cluster munitions so far in this war, and said that if they are used against Russia, then the Russian army reserves the right to mirror those actions, which I just can't help but laugh at. Totally bizarre, considering that Russia has been using them since day one in this war, but also since 2014 in the Donbass. So here we have some classic Russian-spun narratives and lies once again. Meanwhile, no questions were asked on Putin's particularly shiny complexion and Botox refiller enhanced beautiful appearance that he presented at the interview. Then in a quick funny to round it all off with today, guys, so I've been holding on to this one for a number of days and weeks now, building up the details on this one. It's more so confusing than anything, I will concede, as everybody's getting a bit confused right now at what Russia's official stance on the Wagner PMC actually is. Last month, for instance, Putin said that the Wagner PMC is fully financed by Russia. Then Kremlin spokesperson Peskov said in April this year that his son is fighting for Russia in Ukraine under the Wagner PMC group. But then this month, himself and Putin said it doesn't exist. Then more recently, Putin tried to clear it all up by stating there's no law for Wagner to exist, therefore they do not exist, but also that there is a group, but legally it does not exist. And you don't need to make heads or tails of this, really, as all Russia ever does is say what benefits them depending on the political climate in any given month. There is no consistency, and certainly since the Wagner PMC's recent mutiny events from a few weekends ago, Russia has been forced to spin one convoluted lie on top of another to continue to try to save face once more, as the never-ending mental gymnastics of attempting to explain away embarrassing incidences never ceases for Moscow. So that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment once again and like. Really helped with the channel there, all the algos, all that stuff as they normally say. Not sure if I'll be in tomorrow, but I'll be back ASAP, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.